Did anyone else get really into the supernatural in their early teens? The idea of monsters being secretly around us at all times? Obsessing over vampires, werewolves, witches, dragons, and things like that? Watching shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Supernatural, Angel, True Blood, Vampire Diaries, and more? Feeding off the drama of it all? Shows like these were always my favorite when I was younger, and I basically refused to watch anything else. Despite my tastes having changed significantly in the past decade, I still have a real fondness for this genre of television, and I'm really happy about the resurgence on Netflix with shows like Stranger Things and The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. But among all these shows lies one show that was brave enough to ask, what if we reboot an 80s comedy about Michael J. Fox being a werewolf, but we made it sexy? And thus, Teen Wolf was born. The writing in this show isn't the greatest, especially early on, but a cast of charming, likable characters keep the show entertaining, even in the less than stellar parts. I personally started watching this show when it came out in the age-old year of 2011, when I was just 14 years old, and I watched every premiere episode from Season 1 to Season 6B. Needless to say, I was completely hooked on this show. This show stars Scott McCall, a completely average teenage boy with asthma and a savior complex. One day, he gets roped into looking for a dead body by his best friend and the town sheriff's son, Stiles Stilinski. While avoiding the police in the area, Stiles and Scott eventually get separated, and while trying to find his friend again, Scott is attacked by some sort of animal, leaving him with a pretty large bite on his side. After this, his senses are heightened to an alarming level. He's no longer asthmatic, he's incredibly athletic, and oh yeah, that giant wound on his side completely disappeared overnight. This leads Stiles to realize that his best friend had become a werewolf. Enter Derek Hale, a brooding lone wolf, pun intended, who Scott mistakes for the werewolf that bit him. After tormenting Scott for a while, he eventually fesses up that he isn't the one that bit him. The one that did was something called an alpha. Alphas are the leaders of the pack, and the only wolves that can turn humans with a bite. The eyes are an easy way to tell the status of a werewolf. Red means alpha, like the alpha's eyes. Yellow means beta, like Scott's eyes. Or blue, like Derek's eyes, because of reasons they don't actually explain for 2 more years. Along the way, Scott falls for a girl named Allison Argent. Yes, they made the werewolf fall for somebody with the last name Silver. No, it isn't clever. Yes, they explain the joke in a later episode. She is, unbeknownst to her, from a family of werewolf hunters. And her father, Chris Argent, is one of the best out there. Her mother, Victoria Argent, is there too, but she doesn't really do anything interesting until Season 2, so we're not going to talk about her. To get in good with Allison, Scott fake befriends 2 popular kids named Jackson Whitmore, a rich, egotistical jock who hates him, and Lydia Martin, a genius shopaholic who constantly uses her sexuality to her advantage. Jackson is very suspicious of Scott, thinking he is on some kind of steroids, creating one of the best lines in TV history.
How about you tell me where you're getting your juice? What? Where are you getting your juice? My mom does all the grocery shopping.
The alpha begins killing people and traumatizes Jackson, giving him an obsession with becoming a werewolf. And Allison's aunt, Kate Argent, a cruel and unfeeling hunter, is in town.
Come on! Come on!
She seduced and tricked Derek back in the day, leading her to burn down his house with his family inside, killing all of them but him, his sister, who the alpha already killed to get his power from, and his uncle, who was put into a comatose state due to the fire. She takes a place as the second major antagonist, planning to kill the new beta when she finds it, as well as trying to corrupt Allison to being just as cruel as her. The show was really overdramatic. Things that should be simple are stretched out and uprooted to make them seem way more serious than they actually are. Like Allison dumping Scott because he left to try to save her life? How was he the bad guy here? Like in any situation whatsoever? And yet, there are things that should be overdramatic, but aren't. Scott and Lydia made out while he was under the influence of the full moon. And despite the fact that his best friend is in love with Lydia, and her best friend is Scott's very recent ex, it's dropped after one episode, other than a single throwaway line later on. But even with the parts that made me want to rip my hair out, I couldn't stop myself from coming back to this show. Was it the vague, unknown lore? Maybe. Was it the wolf-on-wolf fight scenes? Maybe. Shirtless Derek Hale? Probably.
You swing for a different team, but you still play ball, don't you, Danny boy? You're a horrible person. I know, it keeps me awake at night.
Yes, this show sold itself to the Tumblr communities of yesteryear, with canon homosexuals and sexy shirtless guys. But was I really one of those crazed fanatics who followed all the Teen Wolf blogs back in the day? Yeah, I was, don't judge me. Look, I don't know what it was. Maybe I wanted to be part of a somewhat smaller community than the big ones back in the day. Or maybe it was my budding bisexual mind finally letting me indulge in the gayer parts of me. Whatever it was, it had me hooked. And it wasn't just me either. There were thousands of avid fans back in the day, creating fan fictions, fan art, theories, analyses, all sorts of stuff. And I ate it all up. But, you see, while I was innocently over there trying to figure out why Derek's eyes were blue, there were other, more sinister fans doing the darkest act you could imagine. Shipping. Yes, this show owes a lot of its success to Derek and Styles and that one episode where Derek kept threatening to kill him. Yeah, after that, a bunch of teenage girls really wanted to see them kiss, and the rest was history. The popularity of Steric had a lot of people way more into the fan base than they were before. Even the official Teen Wolf social media talked about it often. And while it's not as uncommon now to have these shows more aware of the fan base, back then it was almost unheard of. This was back when Denny's was really the only business trying to be relatable to teens on the internet, before the Wendy's reckoning of 2017. Another thing the show excelled at that kept people attached was mystery. This show goes from episode 1 to episode 13, barely explaining anything about the lore. What's up with Scott's boss? Season 2. Why are Derek's eyes blue? Season 3. Why did the Argent family start hunting werewolves? Season 5! Why is the Alpha the only werewolf that can fully turn into this giant rat-looking form? Fucking never! The mystery keeps you going back over and over again, and whenever you thought you knew what was going on, they had 6 new mysteries to solve. And boy did I try to solve them. I remember my first theory I had was that the Alpha was going to be Scott's dad. And when the parent-teacher conference episode aired, I was so excited because they said Scott's dad was a bad guy who had been out of their lives for years. And I was really bummed out when Peter was revealed to be the Alpha because I was so confident. So confident. Honestly, from rewatching it now, I'd definitely rather have Peter because I love Peter. But back then, I hated this guy for ruining my stupid theory. Let me tell you, when Peter is introduced, the tension of this show goes up dramatically. Derek joins Peter's side, believing that he killed his sister while still unable to control his body. He kidnaps Styles to make him break into Scott's social media. He mauls Lydia, giving her the bite, and even offers to bite Styles, who declines in spite of his jealousy of Scott's abilities. Allison learns of the supernatural and starts hunting werewolves, leading her to eventually put a few arrows and a few thousand volts into Derek. Jackson starts to blackmail Scott to get Peter to give him the bite, which never really made sense to me because why would you believe this face? If this guy told me my boyfriend was a werewolf, I would not trust him. The Argents originally thought Jackson was the new Beta because of a throwaway line that was actually foreshadowing for something that happens 3 whole seasons later. As I said, this show loves to withhold information from you, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Allison and her family eventually discover that Scott is the Beta they've been looking for, and this leads to the final confrontation of the season. Allison and Kate, along with Chris, track Scott and Derek back to the burned-down Hale house. Kate tries to kill Scott, but Chris stops her, stating that they don't kill kids, and revealing how he knows about the fire, and that she started it. Unfortunately, sibling bonding time is interrupted by Peter, who kidnaps Kate, telling her if she says sorry for killing his whole family and leaving him in a living hell, he won't kill her niece. She apologizes. Peter then says he doesn't believe her and rips her throat out, immediately going after Allison. Scott, Chris, and Derek all try to stop him, and with a little help from Lydia's brilliant mind, they take him down with a Molotov cocktail. But before Scott can decide whether to kill him to cure his lycanthropy or let him live, Derek slashes his throat, proudly proclaiming,
Let me off it now.
They then cut to Scott and Styles in the hospital to find out that the bite hadn't killed Lydia, but it hadn't turned her either, leading them to wonder what exactly she is. Derek finally gives Jackson the bite he's wanted all this time, and that's it. That's Teen Wolf Season 1. Going back to this was wildly nostalgic, and I had so much fun writing this. This show was definitely something special, and I'm not sure there'll ever be anything like it for me again. There were rumors about a spin-off / reboot / continuation, but I'm not sure if that's still a thing that's going to happen or not. I hope it does. But this is only Season 1. If you want me to go over the other seasons and their effect on the fanbase, I'd love to do it. And feel free to like and subscribe, if you're feeling it anyway. I am not very important, and you have a very good day.